Hello again, Back Row Patriots. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Chaida. I'm a Black conservative commentator and writer, and this is my podcast where I discuss relevant issues surrounding people, society, culture, and politics. I'm so happy that you're here. I finally salute you as a Back Row Patriot.
He's having a hard time finding somewhere to stay, finding a place to work, getting income. That's not enough for me. He took somebody's life, and y'all are on here rejoicing about how he's having a hard time in the economy.
Well, it looks like 2026 is starting off to be a good year. So George Zimmerman, he cannot find a job. He doesn't have a place to stay, and he constantly keeps moving. It looks like he has no peace. So he goes from standing his ground to laying on the ground. I don't feel no sympathy for him at all.
I saw this post saying George Zimmerman is homeless, and then the girl was laughing, and I was laughing with her. But then the comment section kind of let me down. How the fuck don't people know who George Zimmerman is? Have we lost the...
Zimmerman had already been told, stop following him. We don't need you to. He's walking back to his vehicle and wait for...
Hearing that George Zimmerman is actually struggling in life right now is what 14-year-old me prayed for. I was 14.
And today we're going to be talking about this old time case of Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. And I know that by making this video, I'm going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. But the truth needs to be said. And sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, but doesn't mean that we shouldn't profess the truth. And before I get started, I'm going to share a scripture that I found in Ephesians 4 in Ephesians 4, bear with me while I find the scripture. Ephesians 4, and it says here in verse 15, it says, moreover, as you Philippians know, in the early days of your acquaintance with the gospel, when I set out from Macedonia, not one church shared with me in the matter of giving and receiving, except you only. Receiving and giving. And the scripture is about giving thanks to the Lord for their gifts. This lied. Let me pause here. America, over a decade ago, was sold a lie that Black men were targeted by racist white cops, and that Trayvon Martin was a young boy who was being hunted down by George Zimmerman and was being racially profiled, thus created Black Lives Matter. And as you know, today the organization stands as one of the biggest scams in America, profiting off of the names of dead Black men and women in order to gain millions and millions of dollars from people in order to finance their luxury lifestyles, at least for the leaders. When the case of Trayvon Martin came about, I think I was very young, and I think most of us young Black Americans were way too young to articulate what was going on. But the media demonized the cops, and political activist groups started the rise for defunding the police. And as a young Black child, you look at the news and you look at the politicians who are speaking up, then President Barack Obama sharing how important it was to how to politicalize this case so much, and try to really explain to us that as a Black person in today's America, we're in more danger than the color of by being in the color of our skin than we are of anything else. You had people on social media now celebrating how George Zimmerman, even though it's been years, over a decade past his trial, how he's struggling to find a job and live peacefully no matter where he goes, that he moves consistently because he can never ever find a place to live or anyone to rent to him or even held down a job. And I feel that this really upset me because people are taking the time to celebrate the fact that an innocent man is struggling and who had his whole life torn down because of a lie that has washed through the entire nation, and America was never the same after Trayvon Martin. George Zimmerman is not the reason that Trayvon Martin is dead. I repeat myself, George Zimmerman is not the reason why Trayvon Martin is dead. Trayvon Martin is dead because he was not disciplined enough. He was heading towards a path that is highlighting a hoodlum street rat lifestyle. There have been articles and people coming out in the media how the life that Trayvon Martin was leading was a life that would have eventually led him to either be incarcerated into a drug trafficking or dead for what it matters. I do not want to make light of Trayvon Martin's death because it is a tragedy. A long life was lost. But if there's a lesson to be learned here, is that we need to teach young boys to how to be responsible and respectable young men in society and not always head towards the ghetto street rat lifestyle that we oftentimes see in Black culture. So when it comes to the case of Trayvon Martin, there is no proof that George Zimmerman had attacked first. There's no proof that he intended anyone to die that night. And what the court examined was simple but uncomfortable. Was there reasonable doubt that he acted in self-defense? And under the rule of law, he did act in self-defense. However, this tragedy is not an admission of guilt. And even though it's been years later, George Zimmerman has not been able to live in peace because people have believed in the lie so much that he killed Trayvon Martin that they refused to let him live in peace despite not being found guilty by a jury of his peers. So, if we're ever going to thrive as a Black community, we have to let go of the lies that have been fed to us and that has been basically weaponized to the point where we believe such false fairy tales instead of looking towards the truth. Trayvon Martin is dead and he will forever be remembered, but it is time to move on. This is Her America. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to This is Her America. We're here to have the conversations others are afraid to touch. If today's episode challenged you, encouraged you, or gave you a new perspective, do not keep it to yourself. Share it, subscribe, and join the conversation. Follow the podcast on YouTube and all major platforms and stay connected because this isn't just commentary. This is conviction. Until next time, stay rooted in truth. Be bold in faith and unafraid to stand. This is her time. This is her America. From yours truly.